Hey guys, Kim Brown at the Christian Renewal Center, and I want to talk to you about our relics and the relics that go inside of an altar. I realize that a chapel dedication is a really large occasion. It's a celebration for the universal church. And I realize that not everybody is able to attend a dedication, especially such as our meditation chapel, where it's a smaller size chapel, so it's very limited in seating capacity. But also, even if you attend a chapel dedication, maybe you don't know all the details of some of the things that happen behind the scenes. So I want to share with you. So for an altar that's going to be considered a fixed altar, this is an altar that is supposed to be non-movable. So it's supposed to be mounted there to the ground. That altar can have relics. So inside that altar, underneath the altar stone is where the relics go. So the altar stone is, in this country, it can be made of stone or wood, but it has to be a single piece. So it's not like you're doing a checkerboard pattern. A lot of the older altars, if you've ever served as like Our Lady's altar or helped serve at the altar, you maybe noticed an old stone that was like this size, maybe like a 1x1. That was actually where the Blessed Sacrament would be consecrated. You got to remember, back when the altar stone was about that size, you and I as lay people did not receive in the chalice, in the precious blood of Christ in that way. At the same time, a lot of times laity didn't even receive on a daily basis like we do now. Remember how Saint Therese in her time period, not that long ago, had to get special permission to receive daily? So underneath the altar stone or the altar top is where we placed the relics. Now, this goes back to the early days of the church when it was illegal to be a Christian under the Roman Empire. They would have to hide and celebrate Mass. So many times in Rome, they would go underground to the catacombs, the graveyards, and they would celebrate Mass at one of the graves of the saints. And so what it was is they were literally celebrating Mass, specifically the part at the altar, the liturgy of the Eucharist, on the bones of the saints, right? And so this is that tradition, that history we have. We see in Acts of the Apostles where the saints were able to heal people, not because of their own power, but because of Christ operating in and through them, right? And this is the process of becoming a saint today that's very formalized. 2 verified miracles are supposed to be attributed to you for you to move forward in the canonization process, right? So it's showing God is working through you because you were just this beautiful conduit of grace allowing that to happen. So for our relics, for our altar, what ends up happening is we have a box that was made, beautifully crafted by Steve Pratt for our altar. Crafted our altar as well as this box of relics that will go in. And so he, in this one, has made 3 slots because we have 3 relics. Very specifically, when we did the chapel renovation as well as the meditation chapel renovation, we wanted to have 3, and the reason we wanted 3 was representing the Trinity, right? So that number 3. So we, for this meditation chapel, really looking at saints of great spirituality. And so we're very pleased. We have Saint Teresa of Avila, we have Saint Therese of Lisieux, and we have Saint Jerome Emiliani. Now, many of you probably have heard of Saint Therese of Lisieux, the little flower, her little way. Many of you have heard of Saint Teresa of Avila, the reformer of the Carmelite order known as the shoeless Carmelites, the disc-clad Carmelites. Both of those saints are doctors of the church, but many of you maybe have not heard of Saint Jerome Emiliani. He is actually the founder of the religious order, the Damascene Fathers. This is the order that our auxiliary bishop, Italo, that he entered in, and the order that he still is a member of. Upon his elevation to the auxiliary bishop role, his religious order superior came and gifted him a relic of his founder. In turn, Bishop Italo has gifted that relic to the CRC for our meditation chapel dedication. Now, with each relic, you're often going to see that they're placed in this little case. And sometimes you'll see this little thing here, which allows it to be hung. Now, in that process of being able to be hung, some people will actually, sometimes you'll meet religious that maybe if they have a relic such as this, they maybe actually have this on their persons. But sometimes you see those special display cases where they have the various relics kind of hanging all in display case. Now, with each relic, I'm going to zoom in here with my high-tech technology. Each relic, you're going to see the relic is that small piece that's in the white, the fragment, and then it's going to list the person's name. The name is always listed in Latin. And then sometimes, especially with popes or martyrs, you'll see abbreviations after their name, letting you know a specific detail about them. Now, then what you can actually do is this backing comes off and you actually see a seal. Now that seal you see, and if you look, you see thread where it's sewn in. So if that seal is gone, or if that thread has been broken, you might think that this relic has been manipulated with, and maybe somebody has stolen the relic, okay? Unfortunately, there was a big time in the church's history where people would steal relics and sell relics. This is actually called the sin of simony, the sin of simony. And this is, we see in Acts of the Apostles where this man comes and he sees the power of the Holy Spirit working through the apostles, and he's like, I want this too, let me buy it from you. You cannot buy or sell church goods. This is why if you ever have a parish auction, you don't say, well, this item was blessed by, because then it sounds like you're not selling an item, but you're selling who it was blessed by. That was blessed by the Pope or blessed by the bishop. And that's not okay, because we do not sell religious goods. We get these free. These were gifted to us. And so we take each of these relics and then we place them inside this case. Then this case at the chapel dedication, there's a deacon that his role, we usually at Mass have a deacon of the word and a deacon of the table. So a deacon that does liturgy of the word, a deacon that does liturgy of the Eucharist. At the meditation chapel dedication, at any dedication, there's also then a deacon of the relics. They will have the relics that then they bring up to the altar area. They hand to the bishop will then hand it to the pastor. The pastor then will place it inside the altar, and then it gets sealed. And it's there forever for us to celebrate. You know, at the CRC, we don't want people not to know who the saints are that are in our altar. And so because of that, we were very blessed by Roseanne Rapp. She did paintings in our chapel, which shows the saints leading people to God and that the Holy Spirit is working through the saints. And we have those three saints lit there. So that way, when I'm dead and people are like, who's in the CRC altar? There's always going to be a record of it. But not only does the church then hopefully, or the chapel, or here at the retreat center, not only do we hopefully keep a record, but then we actually submit a record to the archdiocese. Now, with every relic that's a first-class relic that can be put in an altar, you then have these certificates. These certificates, they're in Latin. They'll tell you, the authority of it, and then it'll tell you who it is, and then it'll list like what part of their body is it, right? So is it hair? Is it bone? It tells you those various things. So every relic has a certificate. Typically, you see them folded like this. So we will make a copy of that. Plus, at the dedication, after it's all completed, there is a form that gets completed. And this form says that the altar was dedicated on this date. And then it says that the bishop and I are swearing that these were the relics that were interred into the altar. Now, normally it wouldn't be a lay person such as myself. Normally in a parish, you have a pastor. And so it's the pastor's name on that. But here at the CRC, because we don't have a priest as a full-time in residence, I'm considered the guardian of the relics. So whenever, like last time for the chapel dedication, when St. Elizabeth Ann Seton's order gifted us a relic to place in the chapel, I became the guardian, the custodian to safeguard those relics until it was time for it to go on the altar. And then while I'm here, I'm considered the guardian of those chapels, right? Ultimately, anything in the church, right? Any church building, including this retreat center's property, it's actually owned by the Archdiocese, and technically Cardinal Donardo's name is on all of that, right? Because all of it belongs to the church, right? None of it belongs to me. None of it belongs to Father Bob at your parish. It all belongs to the church, which means it all belongs to God. And the bishop is who has been entrusted with that authority. Of course, he's not able to be at the 100+ parishes and the multiple retreat centers in this archdiocese. So then at each of those locations, there's somebody that's entrusted with the safeguard of those items. And we are to carry out what the bishop, would request of us to do in those sacred spaces. And in obedience as Catholics, we do that. So that's kind of some of the process for this. So we then will keep this along with copies of all the certificates here at the Christian Renewal Center. You can see behind me that I've actually been keeping the relics in this fireproof safe. There's nothing else at the CRC that we have kept in a fireproof safe except for the relics. That's how important, how sacred, how beautiful these things are. And we've kept the certificates in that as well. So we will keep a copy, and then I will bring a copy down to the archives office for the Archdiocese. So that way, if there's ever, a disaster here, a flood, and those records somehow get lost, we will have a permanent record at the Archdiocese. So that's some information about the relics that are going in the meditation chapel. If you made it this far, congratulations, you get an A. God bless.